Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of the AI Best Business Show, the show where you'll best learn about investing, startups, tech, business, about the MENA region in specific. And today I have with me a great investor, very early builder since a young age, Tambi. Tambi, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Ahmed. Hi.
Uh, Tambi, first question, لما أول شيء I reached out to you, you replied within 5 minutes with a great energy. Let's do it. Uh, what is all and like? Do you love connecting with people? Uh, do you want to have a great network? Just getting to feel the energy because I was really surprised. Usually people take a day or two to respond. You responded right away. Like, let's do it. Where does this energy come from?
Yeah. So I think I do love connecting with people. So I wouldn't say I'm the best networker. So a few years ago, I wasn't that person that goes to events and talks to everyone. But at the same time, I'm very open to connecting with people who are working on similar things, people who might be like-minded or different-minded, but at least working in the same field. And I was always open to meeting new people. And I think online is where, especially if there are people that are coming from different backgrounds that I can't meet in Jordan, where I live. So anytime someone sends me, of course, they took the time. They believe there might be something interesting at my end. So, and I always think there might be something interesting at their end. So I will always reply fast if I can.
Okay. I was taking a look at your LinkedIn, and you have a very unique journey. You were a founder first. You built a couple of startups or websites, and then you became an investor. Uh, I want to try to understand what's the differences between being a founder and investor, and how has being a founder helped you be an investor?
Um, so yeah, I'm a software engineer by trade for many years. Did that in a couple of businesses until I opened up my own business, and then a startup, and then I joined early on another startup, and then at some point I became an investor. So I think building things is at the heart of what I would like to do, and I still believe that I am still doing that at Propeller and other projects within Propeller. So I don't think that builder person that wants to create products mentality goes away. I believe it just evolved in a way. It evolved in a way where I'm actually thinking of how can I help more people build great companies.
Okay.
Before it was just thinking about myself and how can me and my customers, how can I build the best thing, or my team. But now when I started broadening my perspective, that if you can do this with more people, if you can be part of multiple people's journey, of course they own that journey, but if I can just a tiny bit with capital, maybe some support, connections to smart people that are smarter than I am, I can help them accelerate their growth in a way, their companies, their teams. So that's why I would say that's how I became an investor in venture capital. And the difference, it's a lot of difference. Here, working in venture capital, it's different because you don't control all the outcomes. It's a bit different. I would say that the thing that I'm not going to say I miss, but the thing that was easier is that if the code was broken or a customer is unhappy, I cannot sleep for 24 hours just to fix that. But when you invest in companies and you're in a venture capital setup, it's not in your hand. You need to pick the best people, empower them, give them the right tools, capital. But at the end, you do not call the shots. It's not your hands are not on the wheel. Okay. You can just sit next to them and cheer them on in a way.
Well, I think Hala, what you just mentioned is investors. People say maybe an investor's job is easy, but it's actually not, because you're putting money into something and you have to understand that I'm gonna have to leave it I can't control the outcome of it. And it really takes a challenging mindset to accept this fact that my money could go to zero because I have no say in the outcome, which is a huge mental thing for investors. Uh, you've built different stuff, or you were part of different startup journeys. Can you speak more about them, about the cool projects you've built? What's something you still remember that when you built it, you're like, wow, that was great. That was my first time building something cool. I know you started building at a very young age, being a software developer. At maybe 10, you started learning how to uh, code. What's the like one of the projects you're like, wow, I did this?
So there are two, there's, for example, there are things that are cool technically. So there was a game that, but it was a project that I built maybe in 2008. It was a game using Kinect, and kids would actually in malls go stand in front of a screen and actually, let's say they would touch bubbles and make them explode, all using Flash and Microsoft Kinect at the point at that time. And that was, for example, a great project. I did a project for an art piece. It was a logo that evolves and shapes. Those are the things that tickle the technical part in you. There was a something that resembles Spotify or Anghami that we built at some point in 2010 maybe, or 9, actually might even be before, but that was a technically great product that we built. It didn't go a lot. I was part of the team. It wasn't my own project, but at the same time it was technically great. But I think the things that I really feel proud of are things like Joe Create. So we created it was a website for graphic designers and artists. They can share, there was articles, people can share their work. The days when Behance was coming on, and it was at the same time, I think. That was a great project. And the community we built around it was amazing. Until now, I know people. I remember how their work evolved. I saw their work when they were just graphic designers, and now they actually have agencies and they're doing great work. Some of them became artists. So I can call a lot of things that I enjoyed doing. Maybe, I guess I do enjoy a lot of what I do as a work. But recently the biggest thing, let's say, that I did was start PS Rocket. So we built the technology, we built the MVP, we launched it into Egypt. Of course, it was led by Zaid Husban, which later on sold it to Foodex, and it became part of Foodex now, and he works with Foodex. So that was an amazing project. It's too technical. The areas that I enjoy, we'll talk about them maybe at a different time.
Okay. You're a builder. When you sit down and you want to build this idea or this software, what's your framework? How do you think about, okay, this is what I'm going to build. This is what I see. Is it just, okay, this is a cool project, I'm going to build it? Or there's a framework you have, there's a checklist you have before building something?
Okay. So I try to figure out what's the minimum thing that I should be building, which starts from understanding the customer, the why. Why why should this thing that I'm thinking of building exist? To solve a customer need. What is the psyche of the customer? How do they think? What's the best way they can experience this product? So I do a lot of design or at least mental design, not graphic design, but designing the experience, thinking about how can they receive the value that the product offers. Sometimes I'm one of those that are not from the school of just build it as fast as possible without thinking. No, I sit, think, like, not overthink, of course, because you can go wrong with that, but just try to understand your customers more. Whatever time that needs, do it fast, be empathetic, offer the best user experience, and then build the technology. Although I love writing code and building technology, I was always and still always thinking about the voice of the customer. which put me in a lot of problems when I had my own software development agency. I was actually speaking on
Their
my
behalf.
customers' users' behalf. Yani, and sometimes which led to problems with the customers.
Okay. Is there a story that you would share, like you got head to head with a customer? Because I could imagine you, the customer wants a specific product, and you're sitting thinking على المستخدم, and then you're like, no, I don't want to build it like that. You should build it like that. Like, is there a story, interesting story that happened there?
And it happened many times, but funniest I would think about is I was building a website for a hospital, and we did the design, the website, like information architecture, what information does the customer need, and the main thing that the customer came back with, I want it in pink. His daughter loves the color red, pink. So he's like, can we do the website in pink? And it became an issue, and I was like, I wouldn't, I'm not gonna do this. And it became like, I'm giving you the money, you are my, but I don't think we completed that project. Yeah, it was creative differences at the end. In my opinion, I was like, a hospital, pink doesn't really represent it. So that was one of those things. Maybe let's think of other stuff.
When did you start investing? How did you start investing? When did that come?
So, to be honest, I think I didn't start investing early on. By the way, I didn't have that mentality. I would invest in myself. I would invest in my talent, the people around me, my startups. But to invest with other people is not something that I had in mind. But I never had enough extra money to be able to invest. So because since 2007, a company, and then a company. So any money that I had to put in my own company because my family doesn't come from money. We don't have extra cash lying around. So I put everything I had in my own startups. But then in 2016, after starting with the team at PS Rocket and taking my equity there and putting it in this new investment vehicle called Propeller, and learning from other great people like Zaid Farik, the co-founder at Propeller. He did angel investments. I started doing more and more investments, and so far we've done 22 investments and a few angel investments by myself, without Propeller. So I would say 2016 is when I started learning about investments.
Here you mentioned that you didn't come from money, all your money was invested in the startups. Did Propeller raise a fund, or did you use your own money to are using your own money to invest? If I'm interviewing a founder, I'll ask the founder, how's your pitch deck? How do you go and pitch an investor to invest in you? Is Propeller going and pitching LPs to invest in Propeller, or are you using your own money?
So yes, we do rely on other people as well to for us to manage their funds. So in the beginning, we raised a small amount, the holding company that we created to house the angel investments we have. We later on brought in other investors like Abdul Majid Shoman, our friend, and he put in a good amount, and Noor Al-Hassan. It was a very small setup. It became an angel, I'm going to say, like not a syndicate, but a small holdco vehicle. But then in 2019, when we really thought about how can we do this better? How can we have more impact? We realized that we need to become a VC firm. The old setup doesn't allow us to enter in so many companies and to support companies, especially outside of Jordan. So we started fundraising, and then we became as a business model, we're like a typical VC firm as a business model. We do things maybe differently, but the business model, let's say the mechanics, or just normal VC mechanics.
Okay. I'm gonna speak about how you do stuff, but I want to understand, how does a VC go and pitch their LPs? We know how founders have to have a pitch deck, they have to go have a story ready, have a team.
Mhm.
What do you go and pitch LPs? Do you have a strategy? Do you have, because you don't have a product as a VC. So what are you raising money based on? What's your pitch?
So exactly like a startup, because you are creating a startup, you're
Okay,
in the concept, it might not be as scalable in that sense, but I mean, an early business, you're starting, you need people to believe in you. So we did create a pitch deck, multiple pitch decks, keep iterating on them, tell the story, tell the business model, show them how are we going to make money, how are we going to select different companies, and how does that make sense within a story. So we have a thesis of focusing on software companies. We believe that this will give us an edge over the traditional market. So if you actually trying to convince LPs to put their money with us, so we can give them better returns than keeping them in banks or in a public market.
okay,
So yeah, and we had to sell LPs exactly like, because they're investors at the end. And it might be a little bit different than
right.
mechanics. They're buying shares, but you need to convert them to become believers in the fund and
Okay.
then trust you with the money. So yeah, just like a startup, you have to sell people, the
Okay.
investors.
What is Propeller? I've heard different interviews you've had, or you focus on something that you wanted to help startups build their product, but at some point that's not scalable. My question is, why didn't you start Propeller as a venture studio instead of a VC firm?
So we did that in the beginning, by the way,
Okay.
although we didn't know what venture builder meant,
Mm.
but we did help PS Rocket get up and running, by the
Okay.
way, which was the first company that became part of the fund. We did that and then took sweat equity, which we then put in Propeller. But we did do that. But as a business model, we didn't pursue it. It's something that maybe we'll do one day if we find a way to do it, because venture building is it's not easy, by the way. And you really need to understand, like, what are you doing? Are you building companies that should exist, or are you doing copycats? Copycats is doable, but are you really bringing innovation? And if I'm going to do a venture builder, I would do a venture builder that is creating innovative products,
Okay.
things that don't exist, and utilizing our knowledge and know-how and technology arms to bring those things into life. Does that answer the question?
Yes. Uh, so let's say I'm a founder today and I want to reach out to Propeller. And let's say I have an idea in mind that I want to build, I have a team, but I don't have the funding to do that. Should I reach out to Propeller, or should I have an MVP first and then reach out to you?
So an MVP helps,
Okay.
helps both the founder and ourselves. Helps us understand more. Just like you would say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, an
Right.
MVP is worth 10 books. And it shows you, like, what is this thing and how did you validate it and how are you going about validating it? Because at the end, we don't invest in the MVP, we invest in the team.
Okay.
And usually we prefer teams that built the MVP. Why? Because we know they're going to build multiple MVPs. Maybe this is an area where, but personally, I feel strongly about this, that I like teams that have a technical building component, so they know how to build their own MVPs and product,
Okay.
especially in the early days, because they can iterate fast, they can talk to the customers and add that into the MVP, rather than follow up with outsourcing agencies and outsource developers that sometimes take the MVP code and leave them.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes founders are just like, I spent 6 months MVP paying for it, and then they didn't give me the source code. So I'm here raising money to build another MVP. That's probably a recipe for a company we would not enter.
Okay.
So it depends, I'm going to say.
Okay.
I can't tell you.
So I guess this leads the follow-up question. What's your criteria to invest in a team? Are you is Propeller investing as an early stage, really like as before the seed stage, pre-revenue? What's your criteria? Is it the team? Is it the product? What's the checklist you have before investing in any founder or startup?
So team, of
Or
course.
in other ways, what's your thesis at Propeller?
So our thesis is getting in the earliest possible. So we do pre-seed seed.
Okay.
Most of the time, we will probably invest in people with an MVP. They might have traction. Traction does not need to equate to revenue, although preferably it is, because you actually convince people to pay for it. But it depends on your business model. But sometimes we might do it even earlier. If we believe in the team and they have the, I'm going to say, know-how, domain expertise. It doesn't need to be years. It might be 3 years in the industry. It might be coming out of college. Depends how many experiments did you run in your life, and what brought you here. So we might actually do investments, and we did investments with people, pre-revenue, pre-product. I'm not going to say idea, because usually those people, they might have built an open source product. They might have done something that led them to start a startup. So even if they don't have the MVP, they do have something, proof that this team is capable of building great things, and they just need the capital to accelerate that and the know-how in the early days. Yeah, that's how I think about it.
As a VC firm or as Propeller, are you hands-on? Like, do you are you helping founder hiring, change the product or pivot the product, or do you invest and stay back?
So both at different times. Yeah, it's per need basis, and we do help the founders. But again, if you remember, we don't drive on their behalf. We just are there to change the wheel, grease the things. You need to find a co-driver. We would help you find a co-driver. But most of the time, it's support. We don't believe we can run the companies better than the founders. Every company is unique, and every team is building something different. If we build all the companies, then we would, first, it's not scalable. Then it would all look the same, and we would probably not innovate. It's really hard to add value. We try our best, but I wouldn't say that we're adding value as much as we could. We should add more value, and we're always working on areas that enable us to add more value.
Here's a question. Let's dig deep into your portfolio companies, and I want to understand why you invested in each and what does each of these companies do in a way. I think it's Taki Health. What was your thesis behind investing in Taki Health, and what is Taki Health?
So Taki Health is a revenue cycle management software company. So it's a company that offers software solutions, machine learning based, so artificial intelligence based solutions that help healthcare providers get paid by healthcare payers. So there's this revenue cycle management component in all hospitals and healthcare providers, where they need to get the claims as fast as possible, and for many operations as possible. I mean procedures. So the better it works, the more times you will go to the hospital, and they will cover whatever procedure. And inshallah, you never go there, but the likelihood of them covering you should increase. And that's what they're trying to solve, Taki Health. They have multiple software solutions within an enterprise package.
Why did you invest in them? Like, was it the founders? Was it the idea? What was your trigger to invest in them?
Yeah, so both. The market is interesting, and we believe it's a market that any increase in efficiency makes millions more available. Because a lot of transactions happening all the time. And the founding team, يعني honestly, we love that they're two of them are actually MDs, doctors.
Okay.
One of them comes from he works at a telco in the US.
Okay.
Another guy is a PhD in Canada that he teaches AI. So it's a diverse team, but at the same time, they have the domain expertise.
Okay.
So يعني it's not every day that you see a team with doctors that have been practicing that. So we felt that they understand the domain and they can help their own domain solve this problem.
Okay.
That's
Um,
what.
I have on my list. I have Nestrom, Aerobot, Muxam. You want to choose which one to speak about? Which one interests you more to speak about?
Yeah, I can speak about Maqsam because it's more recent. Yani we just did
Okay.
it last year. So Maqsam is co-founded by Sinan Tayfour, Fuad Jarius, and Firas Tetiye. Sinan, the CEO, was at Google. He was a software engineer, stayed there for many years. Before that, he
Wow.
worked at a company called Jawakar. He was the first CTO. And he was part of multiple startups. So his background was, and he's the nicest guy, yani. So his background was always impressive. Fuad, the same. He was Sinan's partner in multiple other projects until they did Maqsam,
Okay.
and Firas as well. So, yani, the team is great. That's a start. It's always the best place to start with. And then the market that they're solving, which is fragmented in the region. So they do cloud telephony over VoIP, which
Okay.
means that you enable people to operate in multiple countries. You enable people to respond to customer demands from different countries. So a call center or not call center, rather like an agent or a customer support person in Jordan can respond to an event that's happening in Egypt with a customer.
Okay. Wow.
So this cross-border enabling work and remote work is something that we believe is one of those key pillars that we invest
Okay.
in. And Maqsam was leading that. Alhamdulillah, they're doing great. Yeah, they're growing. Sorry, they're growing fast.
The, I noticed looking at all the products you've invested in, there's really a huge technical uh, component behind them. Like it's not like, okay, it's a fintech solution, it's a e-commerce. No, if you dig deep into the product, there's really a technical part of it, which like we don't have that many firms or investors doing such a thing in the region. Really looking at the technical part of the product, which I really appreciate. I mean, uh, I'm gonna ask you later on about one of the posts you had on LinkedIn about being technical and product and go deep in it. But that's something really we should have more of this, building products that help people, not just consumer-led product. Um, a question I have is every investor has a startup that passes by his desk, which he doesn't invest in for certain reasons, but then regrets not investing. Do you have such a startup in mind
Mm, I
that you
do.
that you passed on, but you're like, oh, I should have invested in this? Want to share the story, the name?
Yeah. So I always keep track of companies both that I've seen and not invested in.
Okay.
Actually, three I've seen and not invested in. I've not seen and not invested in, and the ones that I didn't hear about them or just to keep track of how good my radar or
Okay.
sourcing capabilities are as a VC. One of those companies that I've seen and not invested in is Megalix. It's an Egyptian founder. The company was at some point moved into Seattle, and they got acquired by Weaveworks. Weaveworks is one
Okay.
of those companies that build infrastructure tooling. And Megalix was a company that helps you optimize your Kubernetes clusters. Really good founder. It was just the wrong call at the time. Our fund was small as well, but yeah, we could have done it, I think.
Okay. What do after this, like what changed in your mentality to make sure you don't miss on other opportunities? Like, did you change something in the way you invest to like, okay, I don't want to miss such opportunities. What should I do?
Great question. So um, when at the point when we actually got to look at the deal, maybe that was 2018, um, starting in the investment field, if you think about it.
Okay.
So maybe we did ask to, we focused a lot on their revenue, for example,
Okay.
because of course, at that point, when you're starting something, you're afraid. So you're afraid to do something wrong. So you have a checklist and you don't trust your gut. At that point, our gut, I think, as a company was like, yes, let's do the investments, but some things didn't add up.
Okay.
I don't think you should wait for the perfect company to come where everything needs to add up. If they are, they would be a unicorn already, by the way. So
Okay.
they wouldn't. I'm not going to
Need
say
you.
need you, but they wouldn't need your capital or your support
Right.
or. I think at that point we were putting. I'm not going to say the bar too high, but the bar was in the wrong places.
Okay.
We were. They were already doing good stuff. There were a few elements that we didn't like, and we made it bigger in our heads. And we were like,
Okay.
this is a blocker. But
Okay.
after looking at how they exited, and it is a good company and a good funder, we could have easily, not easily, but I mean, we could have tried to get into the deal.
Okay. Uh, I want to speak about a couple of concepts you've mentioned on your LinkedIn. First, you say to transform you want to transform the region from a consumer of technology to a producer of technology. What does this mean?
So, as you know, in the Middle East, we consume a lot of the technology that we use, whether it's websites, mobile apps, the computers that we use, the internet cables, like the whole technology that the coding language, like the program language that we use, the IDEs, and so on. So we believe that the region missed out on the industrial revolution, I would say. We don't have cars that are made in Jordan, for example, or planes that are made in Egypt, or there might be a factory or two, but it's usually a different brand. It's an outside brand that's using a factory in these countries. So we believe through software and new technology, whether it's AI, software, you might say Web3, and just doing things that are on the cutting edge. If we excel in those, we can actually position ourselves as a technology exporter, as you can see things that other regions are using that are built in the Middle East.
Right.
So that's what I mean by a producer of technology instead of a consumer of technology. And in order to reach that, we would just need to focus. We would just need to empower the right people, invest in the right companies, by the way. Every VC investment that you do should both bring in returns, but before that, build a great company. And if you build enough great companies out of the region, we believe that we can at least be part of the change. I'm not going to say we would do the change ourselves, but we would just contribute 1% at least as Propeller. And of course, we need all the other VCs to collaborate with us and the other governments and parties.
What I really like about this concept is being an exporter of technology is really something that we need in the region. I'm from Lebanon. Lebanon has been, as an economy, has been built on tourism and consuming. We haven't really had any manufacturing or agriculture, which is hard to build recently, but we have great talented minds in coding and building products. Well, if we're able to use these talented minds to build products and export them, we'll be able to create a new economy that's helpful for the country. And I think Egypt could do the same. Jordan could do the same. Every country in the in the MENA region could do the same. Export because we have great talents. We could use that to advance and export technology, not just receive, use Facebook, use Instagram, use TikTok. We could give them some of these technologies.
A lot of great companies are doing that.
Right.
Anghami, company that
Yes.
started from Lebanon. Wupra, at some point, Eli Khouri started also from Lebanon. And I know a lot of Lebanese great talent that work in other companies. Habib, what was it, Yamli, and many products came out of Lebanon. And if you just look at that scenario, if there's enough VC funding that's going to the right companies and not going to the companies that are only copycats, and you can invest in those as well. It can be your thesis. But we have a different thesis where we invest in companies that are trying to really create global products. They might start in the region, but they have the ambitions to one day start selling globally. So software solution that's built in Lebanon and is being sold in the UK or in Latin America or in North America is the type of businesses that we want. And those businesses are usually large businesses because you have a lot of customers, and they tend to be good companies. And if we can contribute to one of those 10 great companies coming out of the region, we would have done our job.
Okay. Home versus away revenue. I think you introduced the concept on LinkedIn, and it was a thought you were having. Can you explain more about it?
So I think it goes, it's a continuation of the thinking of building global products or products that can actually scale. The thing is that sometimes it's just a metric that I proposed. I don't know. I look at it when I invest in companies. So I wanted to just see other people what they think about it. But sometimes through personal connections, through just being in the market that you are in, you might end up with a lot of revenue, but from your home country, which is the home revenue, versus the away revenue. The away revenue is where you do not have fans, where your product or the way you play, if you compare it to a basketball team, puts you at an advantage against another product. So the more away revenue you have in comparison to the home revenue, I think it's a good indicator to look at. I think it shows how scalable your product is, how much it satisfies the customer needs, rather than you got that revenue through an unfair advantage that doesn't scale. Because no matter, if you have a rich uncle, you want to go into North America, that rich uncle will not help you. Because your customers are they're not gonna even know who you are. They're just gonna see the website. They might download your app on the App Store and not even know who you are. So all that personal connections and personal wealth will not help you move an inch in going to North America, is my opinion.
And this brings me to something. What are your thoughts in the MENA region? Although we're all countries that speak the Arabic language, different dialogues, but we as different countries, Jordan, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Lebanon, Syria, we all have different cultures, different perspectives going on. Recently, we've been seeing more startup integration between all these different countries. What are your thoughts on this? Is it helpful for us? Is it not helpful? What are your thoughts on the general integration of the MENA region in terms of the startup ecosystem?
I'm loving this. The first time that I experienced that, by the way, I wasn't in the startup ecosystem per se. I was building products at the time, is when I went to startup, Yalla Startup in Beirut, by the way, 2009. It was a great event, and where we actually came together and met so many people from the region. But then there was some drought, no events, but then recently it got reignited. But I believe that the only way for us to achieve, I'm just going to say our mission is to be a producer of technology, is to collaborate more and more. So brain power from here, talent from here, marketing talent from another country. It should be just like it is in Silicon Valley or the US, where talent that work there come from different cities, and there's no difference. And no investors look at, I only invest in this city versus that city. You should be investing in all cities. And eventually people would find a home to live in. They might
Right.
live in Silicon Valley, or they might live in different place. In our region, they might live in Amman, they might live in Riyadh or Dhabi or Cairo or Beirut. It, that's just where people live, especially in this remote age. So thinking of the area as a whole, I think that we would increase the GDP of all areas if we just thought together instead of thinking about every country by itself. I don't think we should be competing, because we're trying to produce, we're trying to
Yes.
produce things for the world. So if we think together, we might be able to achieve bigger stuff.
Yeah, and not only that, but when we integrate together, I mean, let's say I'm in Jordan. What's the population of Jordan?
11, I'm going to say.
Okay,
10.
11 million. And then I build a product in Jordan, and then I move my product to Egypt where I have 100 million. That's a huge different market that I could be selling my product to. That would help me on the margin, thinking about margin because I'm selling to a bigger market, maybe make my product cheaper because I have more customers. And same thing when I move to UAE, move to Riyadh, move to Kuwait. I'm expanding my market, I'm making my product cheaper, making it better. So thinking about integration and opening our borders in terms of startups across the region is something, a concept we all should be thinking about more.
I love that. And Ahmed, it gives you a bigger market. Everyone
Yes,
always says that it's easier in the US because they have 330 million.
yeah,
We have 220 or 230, I'm not sure.
yeah,
If you include Turkey and Pakistan as well, you can even grow that. So the bigger your market is, the faster you can actually go and operate in different markets, the bigger companies we will have.
okay.
If we have companies that can only operate within their own geography or country, then we're never going. I'm not going to say never, but it would be harder for us to have those big companies.
I want to learn more about the Jordanian startup ecosystem because you're in Jordan. I'm curious to learn where is the ecosystem sitting right now? What do we need to advance the Jordanian ecosystem? And what do you see? What's your vision for it in the next 5, 10 years?
Um, I see that we have great culture in Jordan. Culture, I'm not saying culture as in the art, but culture of uh, building startups and failing at startups, learning from those failures. I think that culture exists in Jordan because some people started, يعني, alhamdulillah, we stand on the shoulders of giants. People started it in 2005. They did the first VCs in the region. Lebanon was also, it was Silicon Valley and MEVP at some point. They were the leaders, and then others followed. So we do have that culture of building things. We don't have a lot of resources, so we had to adapt. We had to know how to build cheaper, how to build it by ourselves instead of buying things. So those gave the Jordanian talent pool an advantage, I would say, at some point. But of course, that advantage, similar to when you start building bigger and better things, you lose that advantage. You need to compete globally. So we are both in a way privileged, but at the same time, we need to work a lot on ourselves to become better, faster. So I'm very hopeful. Things are moving. I'm seeing people who dream bigger, because I think that one of the things that I failed at in my startups, one of the things was not to dream big enough. Sometimes you put a limit to yourself. Why? Put the limit here. And then when you have better VCs, when you have more people on your let's say behind you that can push you, you start to dream bigger as well. So I think we're at the right time in Jordan and the region. There is a movement.
Right. And I interviewed Hamdi Tabbah. He's the founder of Abwab. I think he's a great founder. His cousin Talal Tabbah, I don't know if he's building in Jordan, but he's a great founder too. I think I'm seeing through the podcast. I love the podcast because I get to see different countries in the region and what they have in terms of talents, and I want to learn more about each country. Uh, here's a question. And as a region as a whole, why don't we have more unicorns or more startups that are going on the exchange, exiting for large numbers? We saw Anghami, we saw Swivel, we saw Kareem, but why don't we have more of these? Is it lack of funding? Is it lack of talent? Uh, what is it that's not making us capable of doing so?
Yeah. So I think it's multiple aspects which you already talked about. So not having big enough markets, not
Okay,
having markets that are consolidated in a way where you can within a few weeks open up in Saudi, and then within another 2 weeks open up in Libya, and then go to Tunis. Similar to what happens in the US, for example, you open up in Kansas, and then easily you can go to New York, and it's just hire a few people there. It's
right.
even the same populations. So it's harder as a region, and because of the nature of products as well. We believe that there are products that our investments are more of the soft kind, if you think about software, where if you build good enough software or solutions for people, it's much easier for you to scale to other geographies. You just enable Stripe in that country or whatever payment processor you're using, start billing people. If they speak a different language, you might need to add a few customer support, or if it's already in English, English and Arabic, you would cover like 90% of the region. So I think it's multiple things, but it's not lack of talent, but it's the talent are not experienced enough. So
Okay,
we do lack a culture of building products just because of the nature, because we didn't build products. Silicon Valley didn't get there before building chips, before building PCs, before building the first databases and first operating systems and things like that. So we do lack that. We do have it. We just need to nurture it more, invest in people that are taking that, innovating in that field. And in time, we will be in a better place. But I don't think it's the lack of capital.
okay,
It's where the capital is deployed. I
okay,
think we have a lot of capital
okay.
in,
In the
in the
region.
MENA region. Yeah.
I'm coming. This is my last question. Let's say you were a builder and now you're a VC. Let's say you're not a VC anymore and you're back to being a builder. Uh, Two questions over here. What are industries that are still untapped in Jordan that you would go and build in? And then what would you go and build?
Hmm. So I thought about it, by the way. So, a lot of ideas come. For example, lately I was thinking, healthcare, if we can build an API that helps all these healthcare startups tap into. And after looking, I found that there's a YC company called Terra doing that. But also there's a local element. So even if they did that in the US, doesn't mean they can integrate with everyone here and offer it as an API.
What's the name of the startup again? I'm sorry.
Terra,
Terra? Okay.
Terra, like Earth. And there's an idea that if someone builds a way for startups to bill other startups, so it's a billing platform, but it works on, I don't know, it might be using a chain or a ledger of some sorts, but where people can actually, it's not barter, but where startups can actually earn credits, which they can spend on servers, for example.
Okay.
So it helps people reduce their need for venture capital,
Okay.
especially in the early days, and they can get people pay by actually some kind of
Doing a
token,
service.
and
Maybe,
other give
right.
you a server
Okay.
so it sounds like a barter, but a lot of ideas come my way. But the thing that I love the most, and which we started at Propeller, is the Expand conference.
Okay.
It is a startup, and it is a thing that needs to exist in Jordan and the region, but we're doing it in Jordan for now. So yeah, it's something that we had to build from scratch, and it's kind of doing well. Let's see.
That's great. Tambi, that was a great episode. That we went deep, we went technical into some points. I really learned a lot from you. Any plugs you want to put in? Where could people find more of what we're doing? Where could people follow you? Feel free to do any plugins.
So, first of all, I encourage people to reach out at any channel, whether it's LinkedIn, you can find me as Tambi Jalouqa, Twitter, Tambi_Jalouqa, I think, and or see me in any place that I'm attending. And please, go ahead and apply to Propeller. If you have a good, if you believe it's a good idea, or if you want to really brainstorm about it, even sometimes, reach out to Propeller, send us whatever information you have, and let's have a conversation. It's propellerinc.me is our website. If you just Google Propeller MENA, you will probably find it. And also, we would love to have you in our Expand conference. It's a conference for builders. It's a unique conference in a way, because it's talking to the audience that's building the startups.
Okay.
And not all of them, of course, not the founders. It's more for the software engineers, the product managers, the UX people. So I would also encourage people to visit us there, whether this year or next year.
Thank you again, Tambi. One thing I want to ask of you is, I went on your blog, on your personal website, and I didn't see a lot of writing. I mean, your last writing was probably a year ago. I want you to write more. I think you have, seeing your LinkedIn, you have great thoughts to put out there, and put them back on the blog, and let's read more about what you're thinking and where your thoughts are going.
I'll do that. I'll take that as feedback. I'll do that for sure.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tambi, again. Thank you for being here.